Hey, today we're going to be taking a look at the problems I'm having with this Husqvarna All Wheel Drive mower. This is an LC221A. It's an all-wheel drive mower. Pretty basic principle. It has one belt that goes around the blade shaft, and when you squeeze on the handle, that puts pressure on the cable and pulls the wheels back, pulling that belt tight, turns the wheels, gives you forward propulsion. Works pretty good, except when it doesn't. I've had this for about 4 years now. Done really well for us. We use it in the orchard sometimes. Toward the end of last season, it started to have some problems. And when you went ahead and pulled on that lever, it didn't want to go anywhere. So I've got the parts here. I'm going to break it down, try to put together a short video that just covers the basics of what you need to do to repair the drive cable, the pulleys, and the belt. And I've got it up here in the back of the trailer because that prevents me from having to crawl around in the dirt. I don't really want to do that. And it puts it in a nice level where I'm not hurting my back trying to get underneath it. If we turn it and take a look, you'll see that there's a plastic guard here that helps protect the belt from anything getting hung up in it. We're going to have to take that off. We're going to use a 3/8 ratchet bit to get this off. Make sure you put these somewhere that they're safe, because you're going to have to put them back on. These parts that I've got do not come with new hardware. In addition, to get this black plastic guard off, you've got to rotate these wheels down and out of the way, because it's screwed in right here. That is another 3/8 inch bolt. You'll notice that this is a different threading. That's because it mounts into plastic. It goes through the steel and mounts into plastic. Again, you got to pull that wheel out of the way. Right out. Looks like I've got a mouse that's up in there building himself a little place for the springtime. Get rid of some of this stuff. This is a good opportunity to get a scraper and clear away anything you've got under here, any kind of dirt, debris, grass clippings. You could choose to take the blade off. It uses a 9/16 inch bit. I'm going to see if I can do it without that. First thing I need to do is get access back here to take this belt off. I've got my old tension cable that activates the all-wheel drive. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. Now you can take this entire wire housing out. You're going to need to compress these two little ears down here. I'll show you the replacement before we do that so you have an understanding of what we're trying to do. This is what goes through there, and so you need to squeeze that basically to make those two ears compress enough that it goes back through that hole. That is out of the way for now. We'll come back to that. This spring right here is what creates the tension on this to keep it from always being in the on position. When that cable is pulled, it pulls upward, creates enough tension here that it tightens everything up. And as this is spinning, it tightens onto the crankshaft that's holding the blade, and it turns the back wheels and it turns the front wheels. When you release on the handle and you release on that cable, this spring pulls it back to a position where there's enough slack here that this is spinning and nothing's turning. You're gonna have to go ahead and disconnect this spring. It just comes right off. it hooks right into a hole around this, on this little shroud that goes around this pulley wheel. You just need to disconnect it, set it aside. You're going to be putting it back on a little bit. Now that spring's out of the way, you can turn this, and the whole thing turns. We're going to go ahead and take these pulleys off. These are frozen up. They come off with a 7/16 bit. You can see this one's pretty much frozen. Doesn't want to move at all. It's all right. We're replacing them. Now that's going to loosen up enough that you can get in here, take these two small bolts out of here. These are 1/4 inch. Both of these bolts that just came out of there have that same threading because this is plastic that it mounts into. Go ahead and take the opportunity to clean this up a little bit. Get some of this junk out of here. So now that you've freed up this old belt, you're going to need to have access underneath the guard that's on the top of it so that you can get this off. You're going to need to take this bolt out. Before you do though, you want to get that housing off. That housing is held on here. It's more these large bolts that go into the plastic housing. Set those aside. These are a little bit different than the others you've already dealt with. In order to take it off, you have to move this gear housing. The first thing you're going to have to do is remove this bolt right here. This is a 3/8 inch. All right, this is fairly long. This is the one that actually holds your belt on. Rotate this wheel forward. Loosen this 3/8 nut right here. Unfortunately, in order to access these last two screws, you're gonna have to loosen this completely so that you can shift it just enough to reach them. This is a 7/16 inch bolt that you're gonna have to get into. Your best bet is to just go ahead and take this wheel off. Get it out of your way. That way you have access to this 7/16 inch bolt. If you can shift it forward enough, you can get that in there and get this other one. It's also a 3/8 inch. Pull this flange right here and you can get this entire cover off, and as you can see, it's disgusting and dirty. Go ahead and cast that stuff out. Does not look like I'm going to get through this video without getting rained on, so let's just get going and finish her up. From the top, you can see, once I get these pieces back in here, I am getting rained on, so I might take a break. All right, the rain chased me in for a minute, but I'm back. We're gonna go ahead and put this belt on here. You start, first off, I guess, I need to fully remove the old belt. Here's a new belt. Check them out, and you see they're basically the same size. The old one is worn out pretty bad. It is junk. Slip that new belt on. You want to stick it up through this hole and put it around that wheel. Now, to hold it onto that wheel, you need this long bolt that we took off earlier. Goes back up through the bottom there, and all it does is just sit right there so that the belt can't come off. Has a 3/8 inch bolt. Tighten that one back in there. And it's plastic, so once you get it in there, don't go crazy on the torque, because you'll break it. And you can see it just sits right there and it holds that on. Now we need to put this housing back on. I went ahead and cleaned most of the debris out of it. This little flange right here is going to catch right there. There we go. Flip it back over. Again, got to try and maneuver this out of the way as much as possible. Put this around so it's easier to see. This is the one that's the hardest to get in there. If I can get that one in, the rest of it will be easy in comparison. Again, that is plastic that you're going into, so don't go crazy. Now I got to maneuver this thing back onto here and into these little holes. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable. If I got it out of there, I can get it back into there. There we are. Again, this is a 7/16. I'll start it by hand, both of them, and then I'm going to use the ratchet set. Well, I think I'm going to start it by hand. Make sure it's going in there straight. Don't want to cross thread it. All right, now you want to tighten it up real good. That was a metal to metal connection, and I am sure vibration will loosen it over time. So you want to get it good and snug. Got two of these larger plastic threaded bolts to put in. The bolt itself is steel and goes into plastic. Hopefully I'm not so close to this that you can't see it. These are the two that I just put in, right here, and then the two that I had to take this off for, there's one there and one right there. Those are 3/8 inch bolts that go through and hold the plastic housing on. Now that I've got this back on, we can go ahead and put the wheel back on. Now, I've seen some people say to go ahead and put some grease on here. This does not look like something that is going to keep debris out, so all I can figure is if I'm going to put grease in it, that grease is going to hold any debris in there that gets in there and clump it up. So I'm not going to add any. Might be a mistake and I might pay for it later. Now we want to go ahead and get this on here. Go ahead and put the belt around this pulley. Got your little bracket that goes around there and holds the belt in place. Let's get that on there. And these bolts that go on here are 1/4 inch heads. I got 3 pulleys that have to go on here. Let me see if I can pull this back up here before I lose it down off the side of the thing. Goes down like that. I believe that is a 7/16 that holds that on. Something you're going to want to do before you put all these pulleys on, otherwise you'll have too much tension on this. Just take your cable, put that little clipped end right there, feed that through the top deck of the mower. I'm going to show that close up so it's easier to understand. The way it holds on is this little curved piece goes in, twist it around so that it pops through there, and then tension going toward the deck holds that in place. Just like that. Put your other pulleys on. Let's undo the mistake that I just made. This doesn't go that way. This one goes like this. I've got it in the proper orientation to put the belt on. The belt comes out from here, goes around this wheel. You got these 2 guides right here, or rather these 2 guards that it has to be inside of. There's this other one right here. You put your pulley, put the belt on the pulley, slide the pulley onto the little spot it goes on. We're going to keep on doing this in the rain though. Not much else I can do because the day is going to slip away from me and I won't have gotten this done. There we go, get that in there, tighten that down. All right, and that still turns. You got one last one to go on here. This one pulls the wheel down this way. Go ahead and put it on your pulley. Get your screw in place. Still turns. All right, there's 2 things I still got to put back on. One is this screw and the other one is the spring that goes in the back. Before we pulled the wheel off, we took this screw out right here. This goes back to hold this plastic piece in place. There we go. Again, it's going into plastic, so once you get it down, don't go crazy. Now we have to put this spring back on. The reason that you have to have the spring is the spring pulls it in this direction a little bit so that you don't have so much upward pressure all the time, putting pressure on that belt and making it want to move. That fastens right there. Look at the way that that spring is made. Oh, my glove is starting to come apart. Look at the way this spring is made. This piece fastens on one side, this fastens on the other. You're going to have it attach right here, this little piece of metal. The other one is going to attach right there on this little flange inside the mower. And that's it. Got to put this plastic piece back in. Put one of these screws right here. It's plastic, don't over tighten it. This one's metal. Goes right here. This last screw in here. Adjust the wheels back up. Now, this replacement cable that we put on here. I want to remove the old one. I'm going to cut these little zip ties and replace them. Pull the old one out. I got to get this cable out. There's another one of those little clips. Clips in. And take the new one, feed it back up through here. It goes in there. Fasten it right through here like that. And that's how you apply pressure to it. So the question is, does it run? Did I fix it? Well, the rain keeps coming and going, but I believe that I'm done. Now, I just put gas in it. This thing hasn't been started in a year. Well, at least not since last year. We'll find out if it works. I'm gonna call that fixed. Now this is wet grass. I'm not gonna run the mower out here in the wet grass because it's just gonna clump up and get dirty, but that is done. I gotta say, not bad for a 4 or 5 year old mower. What I got here in parts, I can't remember if the belt was $15 or $20. The pulleys were $6 or $7 a piece, and then there was the cable. So all told, I'm going to say somewhere between $50 and $60 in parts to get it back together. With the exception of the breaks I had to take for the rain, it's about 1 hour of labor that it took to do it, and I've never done this before. So pretty darned easy for a $300, $350 mower to get it back in action, ready for another season. I'd say that isn't too bad. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Come on back and check us out again at Break Hard Orchard. We'll see you then.